Hey guys, welcome back to Cold Realm. My name is Alex, and in this video I'm going to show you how to set up a React project from scratch. Now up to this point in my videos, I've been using a tool known as Create React App, and it's a useful tool for quickly scaffolding React applications with a production ready setup. Now there are quite a few disadvantages in Create React App. First of all, it's quite opinionated. It's tailored towards Facebook products. So for instance, for its testing framework, it's using Jest instead of something like Mocha or even Ava. And it's also using ES6 instead of standard JS, for example. Now, apart from being opinionated, it's also bloated with quite a few packages and libraries that you might not necessarily need for your project. And on the other hand, it also lacks support for some of the ES6 features like decorators, and it also doesn't have support for server-side rendering, just to name a few things. Now, of course, you could eject the Webpack setup in your Create React app, but if you do that, the setup is fairly sophisticated, and even though it's well documented, it may not necessarily be useful or easy to follow for a beginner. So what I thought I'm going to do in this video is I'll walk you through setting up a React project with only the basic necessary tooling to get you started. And of course, you could use that setup to build on top of it to add more features that you need for your project. So what I'm going to do is I'll switch to my terminal over here. I'm going to create a new directory for a project. I'm going to call it React App. And I'm going to switch to that directory afterwards. In this case, the $_ syntax refers to React App. I'm going to open the project in Visual Studio Code. I'm going to create an entry file. We'll call it index.js. What we want to do in the end in this file is we want to render an app component that we're about to create. And we're going to mount that component to a DOM element. So we're going to do document get element by ID, and we're going to call it app. It's also very common to call it root, but in this case, I'm going to leave it at app for now. So if I were to be a JavaScript compiler, first of all, I would immediately complain about the render method because it's not defined in the scope of this file. So the render method, of course, refers to the render export out of React DOM. And that's the package needed to render React components and React elements to the DOM of a browser. And for this JSX syntax over here, we're going to need to import React. So I'll do import React from React, like that. And lastly, the app component itself also needs to be imported. We're going to create it in just a second. So I'll import it from the root of the project. Let's create a new file. I'll call it app.js. In that file, I'll create an app constant. This will be a functional component. For now, I'm just going to have an h1. Inside, we're going to have a hello message. I'm going to do an export default of the app component. And then lastly, we're going to need to import React from React. Now, you might be asking yourself, why do we need to import React in this file? The JSX syntax you see over here is actually not supported by the browsers. And when we import Babel to a project, Babel is going to transform this piece of code to something like React create element. It's going to pass in the h1 as the node type. It's going to have null because we don't have any properties. And finally, we don't have any child nodes. So the last argument is also going to be null. So the JSX element you saw before is going to be transformed to this create element method call like so. Now I'll bring it back to JSX for a second, and we're going to leave it at that. So next I'm going to create a new file. Let's call it index.html. In this index.html, I'm going to do HTML:5. This will quickly scaffold an HTML file. In there, I'll create a div element. This is going to refer to the app root element that we referenced in index.js over here. It'll be this element right there. And then I'm also going to have a script tag. It's very common for single page applications to have a single bundle file. So this bundle file is basically going to contain all of the code for our application. Now, how do we get our code in index.js as well as the app component to go to the bundle.js file? Because the problem right now is that the import syntax is not going to be recognized by the browsers. So what we need in this project in the end is actually a module bundler. One of the popular bundlers is known as Webpack. Webpack allows you to bundle multiple modules like we have over here, the index.js file, the app component, all of the other components that you're going to create in your own project. Webpack is going to allow you to bundle all of those files into a single bundle. And it also allows for multiple optimizations like minification, uglification, and even more advanced features like code splitting. The reason for using something like Webpack is not only so that you're going to be able to use modules, so the ES6 modules we talked about, but it's also performance, because instead of having multiple script tags, you're going to have a single script tag. And this will allow the client browser to only make a single request to your server, instead of making multiple requests to all the different JavaScript files. So let's cut through the chase. I'm going to go back to the terminal. First of all, we're going to have to set up a project. So I'll do yarn init-y, and of course you could also do npm init with the y flag if you wanted to. I'm going to next install Webpack itself, and we're also going to have to install Webpack CLI. At the moment of recording, this is going to install Webpack version 4. Version 4 is the latest version of Webpack. Some of the advantages that it has is performance, so it's actually quite faster than version 3. It also has 2 default modes, development and production. It has a 0 configuration setup, and it also has very nice default settings. To run Webpack, you could actually use npx, which is a package runner available from npm 5.2 upwards. So you could do npx webpack, and this will actually fail. Now, first of all, we see that the mode option has not been set. The thing about Webpack 4 is it comes with 2 default modes. One of them is development, and it's actually optimized for build time. So it's actually tailored for fast compilation of your assets and providing useful debugging messages as well. Now, the production mode is actually tailored for production. So it's going to reduce the bundle size, make your code as fast as possible at runtime, and it's also going to optimize your assets. So I'm going to modify the command that we ran. I'm going to provide the mode development for now. And the second error that we get is that Webpack cannot resolve .src. So without the configuration file, Webpack is actually going to look for an entry file. And in this case, it expects to have a source directory. So let's do exactly that. I'll do make directory source. Let's see if that fixes the error. And actually it doesn't, because the entry file is still not found. So I'll switch back to Visual Studio Code. What I'll do is I'll move index.js file to source directory, and I'll do the same for the app component so that it can be resolved properly. I'll go back to the terminal and I'll run the command again. And let's see what next error we get. The error doesn't have to do with the import syntax as you might think, because Webpack is actually agnostic to the module system that you're using. So you might be using ES6 modules, you might be using CommonJS with the require statements, or you might even be using AMD. Webpack actually supports all of those, but the error we get has to do with this syntax over here. So Webpack doesn't recognize the ES6 syntax we're trying to use. So in this case, we can actually use a tool known as Babel. What I'll do is I'll go back to our browser and I'm going to switch to babeljs.io, and this is the official website for Babel. If you'd like to set up Babel, you can go to the setup and then click on Webpack. In this case, what you need to do first is you need to install a couple of dependencies. First of all, you need Babel Loader as well as Babel Core, and then afterwards you can install some of the presets you'd like to use. So I'll copy those 2 dependencies. Let's go back to the terminal. I'll do yarn add. These 2 are also going to be dev dependencies, just like Webpack and Webpack CLI. But besides, I'm also going to install Babel preset React. The React preset is going to allow us to transform the ES6 syntax that Webpack does not recognize. So I'll run that command. I'm going to next create a file. We'll call it babelrc. This file can be used to specify the presets that you want to use in your project. So using JSON syntax, I'll create a key called presets. In this case, we'll just have one. We'll call it React. So let's once again run npx webpack. Without the mode option, it's actually going to default to production. But we get the same error as before. And that's really because we haven't told Webpack to use Babel Loader. Now, instead of creating a configuration file for Webpack, what we can do for the time being is we can do npx webpack, and we can pass in a special flag known as module bind. And for JavaScript files, we're going to bind this to Babel Loader. So this tells Webpack to use Babel Loader as well as apply the babelrc file that we've set up over here with the React preset. Now this will actually fail because we don't have the React as well as React DOM dependencies. So let's fix that. I'm going to do yarn add React as well as React DOM. You might be asking yourself, why do we need 2 packages? Well, the first one, React, is actually used for building user interfaces. And those interfaces are actually agnostic of the environment in which they're going to be used. Because those projects can be used in web environments, such as browsers. They can also be built as native apps, so for environments like iOS or Android, and even for environments that support virtual reality. The second package we're pulling in is actually React DOM, and this one is targeted towards browsers. So in this case, we're going to run our project in a web environment, and that's why we need the second package. So let's run the same command like we did before, and hopefully it's going to succeed this time. We're going to get the same warning like before. That's because we didn't supply the option, but it looks like the bundle has been finally generated. And if you go to Visual Studio Code, you're going to see a dist file with the main.js bundle. In this case, it's tailored towards production. Now in your index.html file, you can actually modify the path for the time being. So I can set it to dist/main.js. And if I save that, I might actually copy the path of this file. I'm gonna go back to the browser. I'll open a new tab and I'll actually paste that path. And as you can see here, it actually worked. So we can see our hello element over here. It's an h1 tag nested inside a div with the ID of app. But if you look at main.js a bit closer, let's search for hello. You're actually going to see that this function over here, and of course you can see so far it's been minified and uglified. That's because the Webpack mode has been set to production. But either way, you could see that this function over here that refers to the app component is actually still an arrow function. And everything else inside this file is going to use ES5 syntax. This ES6 syntax is not going to work in browsers like IE11. That's because those older browsers do not support ES6 features. So if you do want to enable cross-browser support, you're going to need to import another preset. This preset is known as Babel preset env. We're going to install it as a dev dependency. This one is Babel preset env, like this. And I'm going to go back to our project. I'll go to Babel RC file. I'm going to paste in the environment preset like this. So let's go back to the terminal. Once it successfully finishes installing, I'll call the same command as before, and this will create a new bundle for us. So in this case, the main.js file is going to be generated. And if we look for hello once again, you're going to see that now it's actually an ES5 function. This app component in the end has been transformed to a regular function. And now this bundle is actually suitable for just about any browser that you can imagine. So this is actually going to work on IE11 as well. So let's say for our index.html file, instead of main.js, I wanted the bundle to be called bundle.js. So how can we tell Webpack to have our output file called bundle.js instead of main.js? Well, this can actually be done through CLI options. So we can call Webpack once again, and I'll also specify the output option. And in this case, it's actually very common for index.html files to be placed in a directory called public. So if you set up an actual project, if you deploy it to a host, you might also tell your host to point to the public folder. This way, anything that's inside of the public folder is going to be visible to the public, but everything outside of it, so all the source code and other files, are not going to be visible. And the same thing goes for the bundle file, so we can actually move it to the public directory. So I'm going to delete dist, and our dist is actually going to be moved to public. So back in our terminal, once again, I'm going to set the output to public bundle.js. Let's wait till it finishes. I'll go back to our project, and you can see that over here it created a bundle.js file. So I'll delete main.js for the time being. And lastly, let's say we wanted to customize the entry file. So instead of index.js, for instance, what if you had something like bootstrap.js, right? So again, this can be customized from the CLI. It's actually going to be the second argument that you pass to your Webpack command. So in this case, we're going to call it source, and you can have your bootstrap, and the JS extension is actually optional in this case. So let's call that command. Once again, it's going to recreate the same bundle. So now the bundle.js file is actually on the same level as index.html. So you can remove the dist/prefix from there. If you save this file, you can actually copy the path of the index.html file. I'll go back to the browser and I'll open it again, and you can see that the project loads successfully. Now, passing all of these options from the command line might actually be quite tedious. So it's often useful to create a configuration file instead. For the config file, we're going to create webpack.config.js. And basically this file only does an export of an object. And this object often has three main keys. So first of all, it has the entry. It also has output, and finally module. The entry key is actually used to specify the entry file. In this case, it's going to be source bootstrap. As far as the output, this will specify the output file. So we need to provide the path. This one actually has to be an absolute path. So it's common for people to use the path module from Node.js. But in this case, what I'll do is I'll provide a template string. I'm going to reference dir name. I'll put a slash, and finally we'll go to public. This will be the path for a bundle. And then the file name itself needs to be bundle.js. I'll put in a comma, and lastly, the module key is actually used to set up loaders. So if you go to the Babel documentation for a second, you're going to see this section over here actually tells you how to set up the loader for Webpack. So I'll copy that same thing. I'll go back to our project and I'll paste it in. So what this rule actually does is it targets all of the JavaScript files, excluding any of those in node modules, and it applies Babel loader to them. So this is kind of analogous to what we've been doing through the CLI by passing module bind with Babel loader. It's actually more convenient to do it from the configuration file, of course. So now all we have to do is we need to run npx webpack. So this should be able to pick up the configuration file we've created over here. And if we go back to our browser, I'm going to switch back to our tab with the project. I'll do a hard refresh and you could see that we get a message, and this one shows up because we chose the development mode, of course. Now let's say if we had an error in our code. So for instance, I might go back to our app component. So what I'll actually do is I'll throw in a new error. Let's say something went wrong. Okay, if we regenerate the bundle once again, I'm going to do a hard refresh, and as you can see here we get an error, which is pretty much expected. But if you click on the app.js file over here, you're going to see that the file doesn't really resemble the code that we actually have in our project. So it doesn't look the same as this content over here. So to make those sources resemble the code that we actually have in our project, we're going to need to use a source map. So going back to our Webpack config over here, Webpack by default uses the eval source map, but you can tell it to use a different source map. So in this case, we might set it to source map. This is actually the name of the source map it's going to use. And this one is useful for development as well as production. And for the stack trace, it's actually going to use the exact same code as you have in your project. So let's regenerate the bundle once again. This time it's going to create a new file in the public directory. It's going to be called bundle.js.map. And this one, of course, refers to the source map. So if we refresh over here, you're going to see that the file that we're inspecting over here has the same code as our source code. So it's actually more useful for debugging purposes. Now, you might also have reasons not to use the source map in production. If you wanted to distinguish between development and production modes in your Webpack config file, instead of exporting an object like this, you could actually export a function. Now, this function is going to expect two arguments. One of them is going to be environment. This one refers to the environment options you set from the command line. The other one refers to all of the other options you also set from the CLI. In this case, I'll pass in an arrow function. Now, the reason this is actually going to work is because I'm using Node 10 and my version of Node is actually supporting all of the ES6 features. In fact, you might be using something like Node 8 or even Node 6. You still should be able to use things like arrow functions in this case. So in this case, what you can do is you could say, well, let's see if the argv argument contains the mode set to development. In this case, we're going to be using a source map. Otherwise, well, you might be tempted to set it to false, for example, even though it might not necessarily be the best option. But this is going to work actually. So let's go back to the terminal. I'll run the same command like before, and this will actually generate the same exact bundle. So we're still going to have our source map. But if I were to delete bundle.js, so let's do remove public bundle. Let's actually remove all of the files that begin with bundle. So I'll do ls-l on the public folder. We still have index.html. I'm going to run the same Webpack command. This time I'm going to set it to production. So this should not generate any source map. So let's see if this works. As you can see here, it did not generate the source map. And that's because we set it to false. Now we'll actually regenerate the bundle once again. Let's have a development bundle like we did before. And let's see, in our app component, we still have an error. So this is going to throw in a fictional error. But if I refresh it, as you can see, we still get the same source map like before. This way for development, you could see exactly where the error is happening. The other thing is that for your project, it's also very common to use more advanced ES6 features. To show you the concept, I'm actually going to switch from a functional component to a class-based component. I'm going to do extend react component. Let's create a quick class. We're going to have a render method with the return. We'll return a button. Let's call it click. And then when you click on the button, it's going to invoke a method. So let's call handle clicked. I'll create a new method that accepts an event and does a simple console log of clicked. In this case, I'm using class properties, and this syntax is actually preferable to work around the scope of the this keyword in JavaScript. And this syntax is actually not supported with the env preset, and that's because the syntax is still at stage 2 in ECMAScript. So if I were to run the bundle once again, it's actually going to fail, and that's because it doesn't recognize this syntax. So let me explain what's going on over here. Let's search for TC39 proposals. let's go to that link, the first one in the search results, and let's go to that website over here. Now this one actually outlines the different proposals for the ECMAScript specification. So as you can see here, they actually go by number, starting at 0 all the way to 4. Now 4 are the ones that are actually finished, and those ones are actually already part of ECMAScript. There's also other ones like candidate, then we also have draft, we have a proposal, and finally strawman. If you go back to the previous link, it actually has a useful list. In this case, you could see which feature belongs to which stage. Now, like I said, the feature that we're interested in is actually class properties syntax, and this one belongs to stage 2. So if I were to look for Babel preset stage 2, this one will actually give us some information as to what's included in that preset. To install this preset, all we have to do is we have to go back to our command line. I'm going to do yarn add a development dependency of Babel preset stage 2. This one, besides the class property syntax, is also going to support the dynamic import. And it's actually going to have decorators that we might be interested in using as well. So once that's installed, we can actually go to our Babel RC file and we can add stage 2 to the list of presets. Once we do that, we can actually run Webpack once again. This time the syntax will be recognized. So if I go back to the browser, I'll do a hard refresh and you could see that the button over here is being displayed. So if I click on it, you could see that we get a console message over there. Now to wrap this up, of course, it's kind of tedious to be calling Webpack from the command line. It's also very useful to have a list of scripts that you can run. So going to package.json, I'm going to create a script section over here. Let's have a dev script, and this one will generate a development build. So we can call Webpack with the mode of development. We can also pass in an option known as progress. This will show you the progress of this command. Then I'll create another one. We can call it build. This one will build a production build, so we can pass in a mode set to production. We can also have progress for debugging purposes. And lastly, we can also create a watch script. So Webpack out of the box supports hot module reloading. So we can call the same mode development command, and we can pass in --watch, or for short we can also specify -w, and this is going to watch all of the files in your project, and every time you make a change to any of your files, it's going to regenerate the bundle for you. Back in our terminal, we could do yarn dev. This will create a one-time build. As you can see, it also includes the progress for that command. We could of course do yarn build for the production build, or we could also do yarn watch, and this is actually going to watch all of the files. Like I said, if I go to the app component, I'll change this to a div for now. Inside of that div, we can actually have a button, let's say, and on top we can have an H1. Let's say click this button or something like that. If I go back to the browser, I'm going to have to refresh the page manually, but once I do, you could see that the heading actually shows up. That's because the Webpack command that we run is actually still watching our changes, and it has rebuilt the bundle file once again. But it's kind of tedious to be doing this manually. So oftentimes what people do is they install Webpack dev server. This one allows you to watch the changes that you make in your project and then also reload the web page in your browser automatically. Now for this example, I'm going to install a different dependency. This one is called reload, and this one is kind of similar to Webpack dev server in that it also refreshes the page for you once you make those changes to your project. So back over here in our package.json file, aside from the Webpack command, we can chain another command we can call reload. We'll tell it to open up the browser tab automatically. We're also going to tell it to watch the public directory. And finally, the dev server is also going to be open on port 4000. So let me go back to your terminal. I'm going to do yarn watch once again. And as you can see here, it automatically opens up a new tab. This time, if I change the text, let's say in the app component, click this beautiful button. If I go back, you could see that the web page has been refreshed. So that's about it, guys. Now the last thing I'll say is it's very common to have the entry point file called index.js. I really just used Bootstrap as an example, but in this case I'll switch it back to index because it's more common to be called that way. A bundle is pretty standard as well. You could still call it main if you want to, but it's up to you. Now the source map, typically in production, it's not set to false because if you have bugs in production, it's going to be really difficult to debug them because all of your code is going to be minified and uglified. So in this case, you might actually explore some of the source map options that Webpack provides and choose the one that suits your project best. Finally, I'll mention this one thing if you want to practice more on your own. I suggest that you check out HTML Webpack plugin. This one is useful for auto-generating your index HTML file from a template. And you can even explore CSS options. So you might look into setting up a CSS loader with Webpack. It's actually not that difficult. You would also add it to the same module key in your Webpack config file. Alright guys, so let me know if you found this tutorial useful. My name is Alex, and I'll see you next time. Cheers!